This is the Making Noise podcast.
That's one of the things I hear all the time, and my personal experience of Bowling Green definitely reflects is the
Yeah.
new music and contemporary styles and stuff like that. What was your like coming to Bowling Green? What was that like for you?
It was definitely interesting transition because we played there was contemporary music at my undergraduate, but typically it was the graduate students doing it because we would get through our standards. You got to get through the standards before you move on to that in some cases. So I really hadn't played anything that was too out there.
Mm.
So coming to Bowling Green, I knew that was going to be the case, and that was something I was excited about because I wanted to experience it. And I at first I thought, oh, I don't actually like this stuff, but then when you get there, you get immersed into it. You start to understand it more, and you're starting to understand that it's not like a melody. Obviously, you're listening for sounds, and you learn to appreciate the sounds of things more. So I had a lot of fun kind of diving into that at Bowling Green because it's just everywhere. Like you can't avoid it at Bowling Green. It was really fun. I really appreciated that experience.
Yeah, that's so true. I think one thing is like you said, you can't avoid it, like not in a bad way, but it's just like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
always happening.
yeah.
There's always performances, and
That's
there's
one thing. Yeah, yeah.
always guest artists.
Hmm.
Especially with like the new music festival and whatnot,
Yeah.
which is happening this month. Um, usually at the end of the month, but
Hmm.
yeah. Now it's going to be virtual, so
Oh, interesting.
that is interesting. But what is something with Bowling Green like that? I mean, I don't want to say just like your most memorable experience or something like that, but like things that it was like the fact that this happens makes me feel like I'm in the right place.
Yeah. Um, I think the constant collaboration with the comp majors was probably one of the highlights for me. Just because, like, number one, y'all were fun people and it was a lot of fun hanging out with you. But number two, it was like you guys were constantly outputting stuff and constantly like encouraging us to play it. So we never had a shortage of music to play, and it was always like fun adventures trying to decipher them and play them for you guys, and like the Percepta concerts and stuff like that. There was just constant opportunities to perform. So even though you are in the middle of a cornfield in Ohio, like that little ecosystem that is Bowling Green is very self-sufficient when it comes to providing opportunities to perform, and that's something that I mean I don't think many other schools have anything like that. So that was a lot of fun, and I think that's probably one of the things that I appreciated the most.
Yeah, I have to I'm totally with you on that. And I've heard from other people who have gone to schools that are actual conservatories, and
Hmm.
and they said like, oh yeah, we had two guest speakers this year, and I'm like, dude, we had like three in 1 month, man.
Yeah.
Like so I think that's a really good way that you put it. And one thought that I have, because obviously being a composer, I didn't have this sort of experience, but
Hmm.
being a performer, a graduate student at Bowling Green,
Hmm.
what was it? What was the challenge like of balancing coursework, like studio obligations, assistantship if you had one,
Hmm.
like performing works by composers? Like,
Yeah.
what was that like for you?
Um, it was not too bad actually. The coursework at Bowling Green for your master's degree really isn't that intense.
Mhm.
It's a master's degree, so you only have to take a certain amount of credits every semester. It's not a lot of work. Um, and my assistantship was the Woodwind Methods teaching assistantship, so I taught it like twice a week at 8 a.m. And outside of that, I had some like organizational work in lockers and all that kind of stuff. So it really wasn't too much work for school itself. Um, the biggest thing for me was I came out of my undergrad realizing that my CV was just bare. I had done a couple stuff, but I hadn't really commissioned anything. I'd maybe done three premieres of something, just not too many things. So at Bowling Green, my focus that whole time was just performing as many times as you can. So I made a point to do a recital every semester, even though they weren't super heavy recitals. I made sure to do recitals every semester. I tried to participate in a lot of the Percepta things just to bulk up my resume.
Right. Were you and that makes a lot of sense, and I definitely want to get into that a little bit, but you were involved with that was it what piece was it in the new music festival? It was like a big production. Was it the Reich? What was
Uh, I don't think I was part of anything that big
no?
for the New Music Festival. We did an octet one year, and we
Mhm.
did a quartet and maybe a quintet piece at one. I can't even remember what we played, to be honest.
Okay.
I don't think I was in anything that big.
I might be thinking of my first year then.
Yeah,
There was I think it was like a piece for I don't know, like 15 saxophones or something. And supposedly it was the second time it's ever been performed, and it was first
hmm,
performed in France, I think.
interesting. Yeah,
I,
I
I
definitely I wasn't part of that one.
okay, all right. Yeah, I mean a lot of Bowling Green is just like
Yeah,
everything happens and then
that's
now
the truth.
you're in the world, you know?
Yep, yep. I feel
So
that.
yeah, yeah. Uh but so can you for anyone who any performers who might who are listening to this or watch this,
Hmm.
um can you go into the reason why bulking up your CV, like you said before, like why that matters?
Yeah, well, I knew that I wanted to eventually get into a doctoral program and hopefully teach at a collegiate level. And that's, I mean, obviously the things they look for are like performance things that you do, service things that you do, and research that you do. So, I mean, I had done minimal research. Obviously, you're in your undergrad, so that's not a huge focus. I had done service stuff, that was fine, but I had not performed outside of a school setting, which is again probably the most important thing because everyone does recitals, everyone does things that are required by the school, like ensembles,
Mhm.
but they want to see that you're doing extra, you know? So for me, it was really important to show that I was active to future degrees and future job applications. So I made sure that, I was just performing all the time and commissioning stuff and playing a lot. But I don't know, there was no like, that's pretty much the biggest reason was because I knew I wanted to continue in school.
Mhm. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that is very useful for sure. With services, you mean like community service sort of stuff, or?
Well, not necessarily that, but like for instance, if there's like an organization that you're a leadership for, or if you were, stuff like that to show. Because I remember someone telling me, it might have been the flute professor here at Florida State, that that is a large part of what they look at when you're applying to job applications.
Mhm.
That you're actually doing stuff to serve the community, like putting on concerts for people or something like that, so that it's not just this little bubble and that you're like attracting people other than musicians.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that's definitely I think one thing that you said before is really pivotal is oh, what'd you say exactly? Oh, I don't remember what it was, but basically just like to bulk up your CV, showing that you're
Hmm.
doing more than
Yeah.
what is required, right?
Yep. For
And
sure.
that sort of makes me think a lot about people who are going to schools, or at least applying to schools that are like the name schools, right?
Hmm.
It's like, oh, I got into Juilliard, I'm good to go.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that statement?
um, if that's all you're going off of, I think you're a little screwed. It is.
Okay.
I think it's great to go to those schools. I'm not bashing any name schools at all, I promise. But like, if all you're doing is going to that school and kind of coasting, I don't think you're going to be successful. You have to like this is something that my professor here at Florida State has been talking a lot with in the studio. He uses the words consuming the curriculum as a negative, in as in you're just doing the bare minimum of what is required of you. And his whole point was that he wants our studio to be one that exceeds the curriculum and does more than is required so that you can actually make an impact, in any way, shape, or form, have an impact on something.